So what makes I mean, marketing is so creative, right? Isn't it? I mean, you're saying you're a marketing director and you're a singer, but what do you identify with really mostly? You know, is it the singing or the creation of, tell us a little bit.
That's a great question. And I know, especially because since you've encountered me, I've really evolved, I feel several times over. And, I think to answer your question, first and foremost, what I most connect with is just the actual creation. Um, it took me so long to just own my creative force, even though I was a singer for so long. It's so interesting because recently, I discovered that you're actually in Germany and that you're from Germany. And I lived in Stuttgart for like 10 years performing and singing. Yeah. Yeah. And so at that time, I wasn't, even though I was in the creative arts, I wasn't really owning that I'm a creator. I was like, okay, I'm just doing this because, long backstory. My mom wanted me to be a singer. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just do that. And then I kind of caught on and it became my identity, but it wasn't really in my soul. And so when you discovered me, I had actually stopped singing for like 10 years. And that's when I became a marketing director. So I sang for 20 years, did 10 years of that in Stuttgart. And then I left and came back to the States and started doing marketing directing. And the reason why I went into marketing is because of the creative process. I knew, having been a singer, having been a performer on stage for so long, I still wanted to do something that was tapped into the creative arts, even though I still didn't believe that I was a creative. It's so bizarre. I was very confused at the time. But over the last 10 years, having left music, I took that time to really start making my own creative choices, even though it was under the role of being a creative director for other businesses, other entrepreneurs. I took their message, just like very much like a musical. You have a story and you have a story you're telling as a singer and you're creating that story for others. I did the same thing in marketing for my business clients. And then, 10 years later, which was actually, 10 years go by as a marketing director. And several years ago, I was like, you know what? I still need to sing. I can't just leave it and go bye, because it really was such a destined part of my soul to become a singer at such a young age, even though I didn't want it at the time. And so when you encountered me, I had just finally come into owning that I was a creative. And I think maybe that's what resonated with you is that it was me not only owning my creative, persona, but it was actually, I really believe that creativity is a soulful expression. It's a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm now tapping it into my Philippine heritage, because that's a part of my spiritual practice. It's a part of me coming back to what my parents left so long ago. Even, I'm obviously Filipino in my blood, and even here in the States, I'm obviously Filipino. I can't just be like, oh, I'm not Filipino anymore. But that's what I'm trying to own into, is creating this experience of what it's like to be a creative, but then also to be a Filipina in America creating. And so that, it's coming in now, all these moduses, which is the music and the vlogging and, all of these possibilities that we have to express and create. That's what I tap into, and why I've held so many hats, so to speak, over the years.
I'm Alexandra Kreis, and you're listening to Outer Travel in a Journey. In my own search for self-understanding, I have met people from all walks of life. I bring to you a taste of these encounters.
Hello, welcome back to Outer Travel in a Journey. On my show today, we're meeting Tesz Milan. Hey! She's here. Hi. Welcome to the show, Tesz.
Thank you very much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yes, and just to give a quick intro to this show, to the guest I'm having here, sorry, Tesz is a singer, a marketing director, and vlogger of the newest. I saw that you kind of started to film things around, being a Filipino in America and creative. I like it. I love it. And most of all, why I have Tesz on the show is I listen to your music on Instagram, and the Be Here Now kind of presentation. And it really touched me, and I know there's a lot of people out there, and I might not get everything, but it comes so straight from the source for me. That's why I thought, like, let's have her in here and kind of see what inspires her, what's her life is like, and how did she get there? So all these questions I hope to unravel with you.
Yeah. Yes.
What does it mean to you then to take on, directing the creativity? What does it look like?
It looks like, oh man, for other people, it's really listening to them and hearing in a way what they don't say, but that they still express, and taking that, and of course, sharing that with them and saying, okay, this is how you're appearing for me. This is how you're landing for me as a person, as a business. And this is how I would like to help you communicate that and connect that to people that may not know who you are and want and are curious, and also how to gain their trust so that they hang out for a while, because there's so much happening. There's so many things that you can encounter in this world, especially nowadays. It's just getting faster and faster. And so as a marketing director, especially, it's like, okay, well, let me listen to what it is that your message is, what it is you're trying to communicate to your audience, so that we can connect who you are with what it is that they want and need in their lives, and bring those two together. And so that's that kind of how the bridge, so to speak, that I try to create for people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's probably more a brick and mortar thing. I think there were so many questions coming up in my head when you were talking so much. Oh, I need to know more. But let's just go back step by step and see where we land. And the one question that I noticed is that I know a lot of artists, and I know how hard it can be to be an artist in this world. And you say, you need almost like a whole machine behind you, the marketing machine, which you stepped into, obviously. But what was it that, how did you experience that to be an artist as a singer? Did you fall on your feet and were seen and listened to, or what was your own process in that world? And I feel like a lot of my artist friends and people I know, that often want to just have a brick and mortar job kind of thing. They want to have that sort of like, I want a solid income now, and they do go into businesses they don't really like. So first question first. So how did that kind of roll out for you with the creativity and being seen? That is certainly a difficulty in this world.
Absolutely. And I hear the multi-layers of this question and how many places we could go with the answer, because it is a complex world that artists have to navigate. There isn't a natural, we're going to pay artists this amount of money. I feel like in places like finance or medicine, or these sort of like, these more easily understood professions, we have a concept as a society of how we're going to compensate that, where those services. Whereas like artists, oh, it's so tough. It's like we have artists that make so much money, and then we have so many artists that make nothing, and they're still, just kind of running on fumes, because they have this drive and this passion, this calling that's just propelling them to do it, even if they have to go, from paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. And I have to answer your question by saying that at the beginning, when I was very young, starting off as a singer, that very question really scared me. And this is a part of what caused me to feel like I wasn't a creative, because even though I was really fortunate to be able to do these incredible musicals at a large scale at a very young age, I chose those opportunities because they did pay. In the sense of, I auditioned for musicals that weren't just the community theater. I mean, obviously I did that to gain experience, but from a very early age, I guess because I was fortunate to have so much experience, because my mother put me into the arts at such a young age, I went for opportunities that weren't, that that compensated. And that actually ended up being in Germany at the time. I could have gone to New York. And that was the thing too, is I was like, okay, do I go to New York and do I try Broadway? But I didn't want to starve, which is what a lot of my artist friends, to this day are, they're dealing with, whether it's New York or wherever. They're like, I have this dream and I want to go to this place to do it. But, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to be able to get, how to put food on the table. And so the opportunities that I chose in that first part of my creative experience, I felt like I chose because of the money only. Obviously, I very much believe that artists should be compensated. We need to eat like any other person on the planet. So I feel like to kind of come full circle in answering your question, I just had this conversation with another artist friend right now who is struggling. And it's like, unfortunately, and I do this too, even to this day right now, I find that it's important to find a balance, that there is a certain amount of, and what I mean by this is, I have my clients, I have the things that I have to do in order to make my income that aren't just my art, and I feel like if I really, again, navigate consciously the opportunities that will pay me that I do for others, but then still find the time and really make a priority to balance the energy that I put towards the things that don't necessarily pay me right now, but that I'm investing in for the long term, which is the vlogging channel right now, which is the music. It's all building towards this empire, as I call it. And I say this to my friends too. I'm like, you're building an empire, because it's like I'm trying to create something that people don't really see yet, but I see the vision of it. And so I'm sitting here on this side, and it takes a lot of energy. I'll have to say that too for artists. It's like you have to really know going into it that it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of perseverance and courage to continue doing what we do, not getting paid right away, but then also finding the opportunities and making the time and space to have those opportunities that then also will pay us. I hope that makes sense. And I can give you more specific examples, but I feel like that's sort of just the general gist of what it is that I've done, throughout my entire creative life.
No, I think we don't need more examples. I think what you're describing or trying to say here to whoever is listening out there and struggling with their art, it's really balance, and some people get it right and they are being dumped into the success, and it doesn't mean that your art is not being seen. It's just like you have to make more conscious decisions on what is valuable to you or what you want from your life. And that might mean also that if you want to live in a beautiful place, for example, like you have to find ways to make that money. That's what I heard you saying, without giving up on, being artistic and self-expressed. But and maybe most artists know that already. I think I hear some of them saying, yeah, that's for sure. But maybe also for those who are not aware of how you have to live, do the little bit of that and do then the other thing. So what you love, and then do a little bit of what you don't love so much. That is certainly a conversation a lot of artists have with themselves and others.
All the time, because it can be so easily, it's interesting, that word that you use, balanced, because in a way it is trying to find the balance between the two, but as an artist, I feel like we're constantly out of balance, because we're like struggling with, I have to make money and then I have to put so much time and effort into that. But then at the same time, I need to make sure that I find enough time and energy to put into my creative arts. And there it's like constantly we're teeter-tottering between the two constantly. I struggle with it. And especially the friend that I was telling you about, he's really struggling right now because he's not able to make the choices to be able to live the lifestyle that he needs just to survive. But at the same time, he's also struggling to find, enough time to create. It's always that way, I think, for artists.
Yeah. And being a podcast that kind of delves into the connection with divinity, broader consciousness, a lot of people that struggle feel that they get the message. It's like, that's not you, even though they love what they do. Like, let's say we have somebody who's painting and they're not being seen, or they make only a pittance out of their paintings, and then they think that might be a message from the divine, so to speak, or
Right.
God, or whatever
Yeah.
we want to call it. And what's your perspective on that? What is your, feeling of the scenario?
In terms of an artist being called like by something
Yeah,
greater
or
than
not
themselves.
called, is that
Yeah, that's a great question. I have always been there's a German there's a word bewundert. I was always very like in awe of the artists that I worked with before when I didn't think I was a creative. I was like, wow, you really love this. You're just like in it. Like you're in it to win it. And I'm, at the time, because I wasn't really captured in my heart and soul by my creative, nature. I was always like, oh, it's fine. I'll just do the bare minimum and get by and do my job. It was really a job for me at the time. And and having said that, it's like I left and I was like, okay, it wasn't mine, it wasn't my calling, but then there's still something that was nagging at me. And I think that that's kind of, I have to say that I think that that's what that was. It was like spirit calling me and going, you know what, you really are a singer. You gotta, and even though I was, I had left music and as a creative director, I was still like, I did it because I wanted to connect to the creative process. And so I think I absolutely, to answer your question, I think it's just, yes, I believe that exists. And I believe that a lot of people know it for what it is at the beginning and just kind of live that life. And then it takes some people time, like myself, to just go, oh, okay, and now I actually, like I said earlier, I really feel that anytime I'm being creative, it is a spiritual practice. It's something that I do to feel connected to all of what's unseen, and I'm using myself and using my creative output as a way of drawing that energy in and creating things for others to feel that and feel that for themselves in whatever shape that is in their lives.
Yeah, because it's so easy to have dreams and visions, but it's very hard to bring them into, this world. That is the whole process that you kind of are interested in. That's what I hear here. And which we misunderstand with all the, with all the possibilities out there, how we can manipulate the brain and how we can, not manipulate, but, stimulate the subconscious. There's always a sense. If I say my mantra often enough, I probably am going to get it. But it takes really action to get things down and brought into this realm that other people want to pay for, or maybe, see it more clearly, as you say. Yes. What is the religious aspect like in the Philippines? Like, is that very out there in society still? And what are, how does it express itself? That's what I should be asking, I'm going to start tearing up because I'm so grateful that you're asking this question. This is a fabulous question that has always sort of circled around in my subconscious. So we are very, very religious and very, very rooted in this sort of Christian religion and Christian faith. And I have always felt that there is something intrinsically spiritual about our people. The reason why, just also to share, the reason why I'm doing the vlogging channel now is because I need to tap into this. This is another calling that's not only the creative and the singing, but I feel like the learning of my culture is something that is definitely calling me from outside, or whatever you want to call it. But I need to tap into that because I feel like it's going to make me even more encompassing, and I don't want to say stronger or more powerful, but it just helps me draw in what is already available to me. And so I need to become more consciously aware of all of the nuances of my heritage, because I feel like the spiritual aspect of it is so strong. And what's interesting about the Filipino people is that it's sort of an inside joke that's sort of well known, that a lot of Filipinos can sing. Most of us actually are just born singers, and it's not like we all sound great, but we just have this, like, we're usually at the karaoke, jam sessions, and we're usually, when we have parties together, somebody's singing or somebody's pulling out an instrument and playing, and it's a part of our heritage. And I know that every culture has an aspect of
culture and art and music. But in the Philippines, it's so a part of who we are. You'll notice that if you go around the world, a lot of the cover bands and a lot of the performers that are internationally based who are Asian will more often than not be Filipino. And I feel like that's it. It's just a part of our spiritual makeup, or just our spiritual being, is just to express ourselves through our spiritual selves through voice and through music.
I found you singing, and I was in awe. What happens when you sing? Are you letting go a little bit of your whatever construct of who you are, or how do you experience singing yourself?
Yeah, I have moments of that. Absolutely. Yeah, when I'm performing, there are moments when I'm really in control of what's happening around me, and then there are it's a constant ebb and flow, so to speak, where I'm like kind of going between losing myself in the music, especially when I feel really confident about what I'm doing and I'm practiced. But then also, there's just moments where I couldn't ever practice for what happens, because I just suddenly tap into this thing that I'm like, this feels right. This is what I'm going to do. And I just have to trust this moment. And then I kind of go into that. But usually leading up to that, I'm very aware of the audience around me, of like what it's, what I'm singing, what I'm feeling. And then there are just little pockets of time when I'm just, holding a note out, or when I'm really involved in like the expression of what it is that I'm saying, either through the words or through the sounds that I'm making, where then I tap into that moment of like just complete loss of sense. And I'm just in that expression.
That comes back to me, like I do like to sing at home, but
Yeah.
that comes to stage. But what I notice lately a lot, as I'm strengthening my own spirituality, let's call it that, and using it more as not as like asking for something, but being with it. I notice when I sing that sometimes there are songs coming back, even from the pop world, from pop songs and whatever. There is a true meaning behind it. It's almost like in that little crack I can see God. And then it feels like, to me, when I sing, the room is full and I feel elevated, and it's not me that is singing, but something else takes over. And that's what I wanted to share. I don't know whether there was a question in there.
No, I think it's beautiful that you shared that, because I think that that's what a lot of artists, why we keep coming back for more. When we are able to tap into that, even from, it can happen when you're very young, it can happen, not for a while, and then suddenly you experience it. But the moment you experience that, that's when you're like, ooh, I want more of that. Yeah. It's a blissful place.
So
yeah.
Is there anything that you feel like you want to share before we say goodbye, or anything that we haven't kind of touched upon that is dear to your heart, and you want to maybe give a little bit of encouragement to listeners, or that people that are in the artistic field? I don't know. Is there anything?
Yeah, I just have to say that I actually want to give this back to you, that I really appreciate that something that I did resonated with you, that whatever it is that I put out there resonated with you, because as an artist, it's so, especially with as quickly as digital has taken over our world and the way that we express and communicate our artistic and creative abilities, just the fact that you put yourself out there to connect with others that you've like you and I have never physically met in the 3D world. You met me through Instagram, and then you kept at me because life just takes over. And I know that a lot of artists can relate to this. It's like sometimes we feel like we're in a vacuum creating, and going back to your first question, it's like, how do you keep going when you have to struggle with making ends meet, but then also still being true to your creative art? And it's like, this is how you do it, is you find those people that you just resonate with, and you find a way to connect and share your stories with each other, so that you can help to give that, this is you and I now tapping into what it was that I was saying, that sort of like out of thin air, it's like, you've just given me enough energy to keep going, and to know that what it is that I'm doing does resonate with other people. And that's, I think, the most, for me personally as an artist, that's the most that's the easiest way for me to feel discouraged, is when I don't feel like what I'm doing is actually reaching anybody. And you showed me that it does, in whatever small or great way, because now you've given me a place to share a bit of my story, and to feel like I'm going to even have the opportunity to reach even more people, such as yourself, just like you, who will resonate with what it is that you and I talk about, and the stories that we shared with each other. So that's the thing that I just want to offer, is that, as an artist, this is the magic, and this is what it is that you do, the little steps that you take with each other to propel each other forward. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. And, I can't put you on the spot and ask you to sing something so that the listeners understand what I'm talking about. And but we can say, if you go and connect on Instagram, because Tesz always kind of has a little bit of, a clip from a show or something, you can certainly hear her there. You just want to belt out a little bit of something.
I'm just trying to think what I could do for you. I should have known that this was coming, because this always happens. And every time it happens, I'm always like deer in headlights going, oh, none. Okay, what should I sing? Let me sing a little bit of Long Time Sunshine. It's the mantra that in the Kundalini yoga practice that they sing at the very end of every practice. And it's so funny, because just a really quick story about this song. When I first sang it, I didn't really know, because I didn't practice Kundalini yoga until actually later into the album, of which the entire album is actually based on Kundalini yoga, like mantras. But the producer, his lifelong, spiritual journey was in that faith. And so he shared that with me, and there were so many things about it that resonated with me, which is why we did the album together. Anyways, so when I sang Long Time Sunshine for the first time, I was like, oh, this is so pretty. This is so beautiful. And then I finally did my first Kundalini yoga class, and I was like, oh, this is a really important song. It's like a really important song. So then I went back and I re-recorded it with him, and I was like, okay, now that I have an understanding of how important this song is, let me re-record this. But I'll try to sing just a little bit for you. Gosh, it's actually been so long since I sang this, so I'm going to have to really figure this one out, in the spot. So, may the long time sunshine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on.
No, that was so. It only took the first 3 verses, and then everything came through. It was so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for that gift. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the gift of asking me and putting me on the spot, because that's also another part of the creative journey, is just to take those leaps and go, you know what? Whatever happens, that's what it is.
No perfection. Just step into it and see what comes. Well, absolutely. Many, many thanks for this conversation, and may you have the long time sun on your back all the time.
Thank you. I wish you the same.
Thank you. And bye-bye, dear listener, and see you in the next show.